Good evening and welcome to the special meeting for the Akron Public Schools Board of Education for Wednesday, November 11th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Dr. Akbar.
Here.
We know that Mr. Alexander is called. Miss Autry.
Present.
Mr. Bravo.
Present.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Here.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if everyone could mute and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And also, happy Veterans Day to everyone and to those who serve, including those on our board and on our staff. Thank you for your service. Hope you. Sorry. If you heard that, that was my phone. That was Mr. Alexander calling. I will catch him in just a moment. At this time, we are going to hear an update on our middle school, college, and career academies master plan. And so I'd like to turn it over to our Instructional Policy and Student Achievement Committee, Mrs. McKittrick and Mrs. Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, the College and Career Academies of Akron is a pre-K through 12 program, and the high school program has been rolled out and functioning, and the middle school transformation has been in process, but of course, COVID threw everything into disarray, and that included the middle school transformation. So we are now getting it back on track, and we will turn it over to Lisa and Dr. James with the follow-up.
Thanks, Val. Just wanted to thank Dr. McWilliams-Woods and Rachel Tecca for the continuous updates they've done throughout. We had this all planned to roll out to you in April, and it got delayed. So thanks so much for that. And no small thanks to my past co-chairs, and especially to Val for the experience that she's brought in bringing this forward also. In addition to the innovations in teaching and learning and the excitement that that has, I think that the other thing that I'm most excited about this is the connections to experiences in our community, and how this will help to create a sense of belonging for middle schoolers throughout our community, regardless of where they go to middle school, and prepare them for high school and for their futures, and connecting them to their city. So a huge shout out and thanks to the many participants of the Master Planning Committee. I think Dr. McWilliams-Woods told us there were 80 of them. I looked over the names today, but such huge thanks to them for all of their time. And with that, I'll give it over to you, Dr. James.
Thank you. So I wanted to kind of give a short summary of where we've been and our timeline. So back in 2011, a small group of community leaders who were on our Business Advisory Council at the time visited Nashville to look at their version of their work with the Ford Motor Company's Next Generation Learning organization, and their foray into college and career academies. And what stood out to us is the increase in their graduation rates and student success as part of the academy program down there. So, from there until 2016-17, we had talked about it here locally, tried to build a consensus around getting business support for that endeavor. And in 2016-17, we launched our College and Career Academy program at North. And just prior to that, we had a significant number of community leaders and representatives from, not just government agencies, but primarily from the private sector who worked on our master plan. So in spring of 2017, we had our designation ceremony and became a Forward Next Generation Learning Community, the first one with that designation in Ohio. In 2018, we expanded our College and Career Academy program and launched it in all of our high schools. And then this past year, of course, the design of our middle school master plan. And we really look at our College and Career Academy program, again, as a pre-K through 12 program, part of our work with the GAR Foundation and those essential experiences as a precursor to what kids can see later on in middle school and high school, because there is definitely a career focus with our essential experiences program. I'm real happy for our team to present tonight on our middle school academy plan. And so right now I'd like to turn it over to Mark Black, our Executive Director of Secondary.
Mark, you're muted.
Sorry about that. In our quest to become the #1 urban school system in the United States, our work with college and career academies is our vehicle to meet that quest. And what we've done is focused on our mission of to prepare each child for success by designing across our focus areas a framework for learning that takes place at the elementary, middle school, and high school, with it being embodied by 3 focus areas, which is being enrolled, enlisted, and employed. And with that idea of our 3 E's, we have to make sure that our high quality instruction is relevant for all students to tap into their dreams and aspirations, and for our learning centers to be the place where they can have collaboration and engagement with our partners. So today we're going to talk about how we're bringing the middle school up to meet that goal. We're going to talk about how the pre-K through 12th grade transformation has been working throughout our district over the last 3 to 4 years. And then I'll come back and talk about the review of how our focused middle school master plan is going to take us to the next level with the work that's already been established within the high school and the work that Mary Otley Kelly has started in the elementary. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Tecca so she can connect the work and give you the framework of where we are with our pre-K through 12 transformation.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to be able to share with you the vision, Dr. James, Dr. McWilliams-Woods, as well as you board members and previous board members who have worked diligently to create a different educational experiences for our students in Akron. What we start with here is this visualization of what our portrait of a graduate needs to look like after they have had the experience of working through the College and Career Academies of Akron. One of the most kind of innovative tasks that our steering committee worked through from the beginning was actually starting with the end in mind, starting with this portrait of a graduate that really was going to drive the work to make sure that we produce students through Akron Public Schools educational experience that have the tools in their tool belt to follow their dreams and aspirations after high school. And that portrait of a graduate has done an outstanding job of being the framework to drive the work at the high school level. In addition to that, the elementary College and Career Academy started with the end in mind as well. Their portrait of an elementary scholar lined up beautifully with the high school portrait as well, but took it down to that elementary level. They lined up, if you notice, there's alignment with the strong habits of mind, the real world skills, a plan for the future, contribute to society, and social skills. There's alignment, but it's also made accessible for students in pre-K through 5th or 6th grade. What we're talking about today is about the middle school aspect of this. We believe strongly that middle school is the bridge to connect the elementary scholar to our portrait of a graduate. We know students in middle school aren't young kids anymore, but they're not quite teenagers. And so they need a different educational experience that gives them the opportunity to develop those really strong social emotional learning habits, to develop inquiry-based learning, to develop those skill sets that we know will help them get ready for their high school experience. College and Career Academies is an important member of the Ford Next Generation Learning Network. We're very fortunate to be a part of this network that really provides us with an opportunity to learn from other communities across the country doing this transformational work. But what's most important is how the Ford NGL framework really anchors our work around three major strands or major themes. We're working on making sure that we are transforming our teaching and learning practices, we are transforming the experience for our students, and we are engaging our business and community partners at a very deep level so that they're invested in our students and in their educational experience. And these three strands you will see at the high school level, the middle school level, and then in the elementary level as well. The other piece that you will see consistently throughout the pre-K to 12 transformation is that this transformation will require small learning communities at every level, thematic learning at every level, as well as deep partnerships at every level. As most of you know, in the high school, small learning communities are around an academy. That thematic learning is based on making real-world connections to students' area of interest to their core content areas. And we currently have over 250 business partnerships at the high school level, really driving the work of college and career academies for high school students. What this will look like in middle school will be the idea that we're building small learning communities across grade level teams so that we're building that sense of belonging for all of our students and that we have adults who are invested in the success of the students that we serve. Thematic learning in the middle school will be all about really looking at our community's problems, right? Looking at across the nonprofit organizations that we're going to partner with. And I have our students really dig in to provide real authentic solutions and then have the opportunity to go and implement those solutions in some type of service learning opportunity. So the thematic learning will be in play for middle school as well. And then lastly, we are very excited at the opportunity to really increase our business partnerships with nonprofit and philanthropic organizations throughout our city. We have a lot of high interest and a lot of enthusiasm to be that major business partnership for our middle school experience for our students. So you'll see this continuation of our foundations of college and career academies at the high school, now the middle school, and then eventually in the elementary school. So there'll be consistent themes that will help us drive this work. And one major component that I wanted to make sure we had time to emphasize today was the fact that we have a community that is completely invested in the work of the College and Career Academies of Akron. When you look at this infographic that is on the screen, I also hope you all received the hard copy that came with your middle school master plan addendum so that you can see it a little better. This is pretty small. But what you'll see is organizations within our community that are dedicating resources and time and talent to make sure that this is a successful implementation. So when you start at the top of this infographic and you look at what Connexus NEO has done for the College and Career Academies and continue to do to really provide the workforce data that helps us meet the needs of our local community, but also they convene our industry sector partnerships that are completely dedicated to make sure that there is equitable resources and experiences across our district right now for our high school students. That's a major component to their industry sector partner work, and that we are in our third meeting with the industry sector partnerships so far across the high school, and it's gone very well. Secondly, you'll see the Greater Akron Chamber listed, and they continue to be that voice of CEO champions that are looking to advocate for college and career academies across not only our city, but our county and state. Summit Education Initiative is a major partner who continues to provide us with data and strategy so that we are working on the right work and moving indicators that will help our students be the most successful they can be. You also see United Way listed. They continue to do outstanding work with our high school, college, and career academies by engaging business and community partners. And it's a continual process of updating and retaining partnerships for each of our academies and pathways. And we continue to be blessed with an outstanding partnership with United Way. In addition, in the middle school is the Akron Community Foundation. The Akron Community, and Mr. Black is going to speak to this shortly, but the Akron Community Foundation has played a major role in the development of the middle school master plan addendum. And they're charged with, if you choose to approve this master plan addendum, they will be taking on a major lead in providing nonprofit and philanthropic organizations to support the service learning aspect for our middle school students. And then lastly, you'll see, I shouldn't say lastly, there's one additional one, but we in Akron will be making sure that we are coordinating and providing oversight with all of these organizations. If you notice in the hand, underneath the hand is the GAR Foundation. The GAR Foundation has played an integral role from the inception of college and career academies as they continue to be the strategic organization that helps all of us align our work to meet the needs of our community and to help our kids grow. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Black.
Thank you, Rachel. First, let me take the time to thank our board for allowing Dr. James to explore the possibilities of implementing a middle school master plan that will provide family engagement and voice, student leadership and voice, and equity throughout our middle schools. This is not an easy task. And for you guys to allow him the flexibility to explore this, we're going to present to you a plan of the results for you trusting in us to deliver what would be a master plan to transform our middle schools so that that student at middle school isn't feeling like they're in between elementary and high school, not knowing if they still should act like they're in elementary or if they should act like they're grown and they're going to middle school. Some of our students get confused and get lost in the middle school because of that dynamic or that dilemma that they may face. So thank you for allowing us the opportunity to explore this avenue of transforming our middle school. With that being said, there's some partners that wanted to come along with us. They believed in what we were trying to do or what we're trying to do. And they not only funded our CCAA and our strategic community and became our strategic community partner, but they also funded the professional development for us to enhance this work and explore this work. So the GAR Foundation, or GAR, Foundation, was the first to come on board and to provide us with the opportunity to start exploring what professional development could look like and how student leadership could elevate our middle school transformation. And then we have the Martha Holding Jennings Foundation. You know, their work is throughout Northeast Ohio, but they were on board with Akron Public Schools. Yes, we had partners come from near and far to join in on this transformation. And we're very, very thankful that they allowed for us to explore some innovative practices, collaborate with some folks that were already doing some deeper learning and strategic thinking, and they became our partner in connecting us to not only the communities that are doing the work, but the work that we were trying to do. And we thank them for that. And then finally, the Akron Community Foundation, our local partner, our convening nonprofit partner, that is every step of the way with us in this transformation process, not only recruiting businesses to come on, nonprofits to come on and support our middle school, but they're also there to help us fill a position that will allow for our work to move forward as well and become sustainable. So we thank the Akron Community Foundation for their dedication and belief in what we're trying to do with our middle school. With that being said, we have 3 overarching themes that you'll find in the master plan. And we had teachers, students, parents, nonprofit organizations, a lot of CEOs and business partners come and help us design our work around these 3 focus areas. Instruction and habits of mind was what was coming to light to help us drive. It became our system of how we were going to get students and teachers to collaborate around the learning and change what learning looks like within the classroom. The climate and culture became the need that we felt in order to have the students prepared to go out and have essential experiences and to have folks to come into the buildings to support essential experiences. We needed a need to change our climate and culture, not so that it's more inviting, but more collaborative. And social emotional learning, that's a skill that we need to not only teach our teachers how to engage with, but also how our students can engage with themselves and others and tapping into their self-awareness so that they're supported in the learning process. If you could. So from the work of these 3 thematic overarching focus areas, we had tactical teams come together and create plans that would support the work. Inquiry-based learning, again, which was our focus area for changing instruction within the classroom, transforming instruction. We had 3 focus areas: experiential learning, service learning, inquiry-based learning. In those 3 areas, when you think about our portrait of a graduate that Rachel talked to you about earlier, and you look at our strong habits of mind, you look at our social skills, our real world skills, those 3 buckets in the tactical plans drive home what we're looking for in a portrait of a graduate as it relates to being able to go out and not only be able to enroll or enlist, but to have a competitive high-wage job. So our inquiry-based learning within the middle school will allow for our students to not only self-direct their learning, solve problems, allow for teachers to build the capacity within the classroom to lead the learning of collaborative work and becoming a facilitator. Yes, it's very hard for a teacher to step back and become a facilitator when we have always had direct instruction or we led the instruction. But our teachers are on board to change that dynamic within the classroom and become more of a facilitator of learning. We're delivering this, and you'll hear more about it later with a platform that's called Soul, and you'll hear more about Soul later. This platform allows for teachers to build capacity, and it also houses questions that will allow for students to have an essential experience and collaborative experience to solve problems in the real world. Social emotional learning, our social emotional learning area, there's 5 tactical plans that were submitted, and you'll find within the master plan. That's trauma, transitions, training students, training teachers, family, and community. I started off by saying you guys provided the flexibility for Dr. James to allow for us to explore what it would look like for our families to not only engage, but have a voice. That is within not only our social emotional learning experience, but throughout all of our plans. But within this area is where we're going to build students' leadership so that they are aware of what they need to build a mental capacity to overcome productive struggle so that they can stay engaged in the learning process and not shut down like we see most of our middle schoolers do in the process of learning and connecting to the real world. I'm pretty sure we can relate back to when we were in middle school. We asked the question, why are we learning this algebra? What does it connect to? What am I going to be able to do with it? Why do I need to know this? Well, we're trying to build that capacity with not only our teachers to connect their content to relevant experiences, but also for our students to be able to engage and identify those relevant experiences. So with that, we have to build the climate and culture that will support that so that we include every student. So equity and inclusion will be the first area of focus for our climate and culture, ensuring that all students have the right access as well as the supports to navigate through the inquiry-based learning and to support any type of outside barriers they may have by providing resources to them. That will generate high expectations for all, as well as better communication systems from our community members to our teachers, to our parents, to our students, to our administrators, so that we're all on the page of understanding what it means to be college and career ready in the Akron Public Schools. So with all of this focus comes some failures and successes. We are going to create some matrix, or we have some matrix that we have created that will allow for us to know if we're on track to meet our goal. If you can go to the next slide, Rachel. All right, so I'll turn it back over to Rachel so she can tell you how this connects to not only what we're doing in the elementary and middle school, but how it goes all the way up to the high school and back down.
So, for us, we are at the point where we are establishing baseline data for all of the indicators that are listed in the middle school master plan addendum. So when we talk about the data points that we are looking to influence through this model, we're talking about making sure we're monitoring grades for every grade level. We're monitoring the grade point average of our students, making sure that our attendance is showing some significant increases. And we want to make sure that we're capturing the perception of not only just our families, but also our community members on what the educational experience is here in Akron Public Schools. We're going to keep data points on how many of our students are engaging in their service learning projects, or out in the community having those experiential learning opportunities. We will be tracking their planning process through the Career Cruising platform. And we'll also be doing some perception data around their students' sense of belonging and how connected they feel to their school, their teachers, their teams, and their work within the middle school setting. This is, as mentioned earlier, we are at the beginning phase of setting that baseline data so that we can see the impact of everything we're going to lay out in front of you as far as implementation to really improve these indicators for our students and our families within Akron Public Schools. Okay. The next area that Mark and I would like to address is the idea that we're going to continue with this very systematic and structured process to engage our business and community. What you see on the left-hand side is a visualization of the structures built at the high school level to sustain college and career academies as a community transformation. So we have a high-level steering committee who meets 3 times a year, that we have an annual retreat every summer that we provide data updates, especially the indicators that were mentioned previously, and we show outcomes to our constituents and our steering committee members. They also provide us their expertise and ideas on how to continue to improve the work for our students and for college and career academies. We will be keeping this steering committee in place for the middle school transformation. What we have done so far is really take our steering committee, we have a whole group, and then we also break out into elementary, middle, and high to really drive the work of college and career academies. The second piece is this idea that we have CEO champions that really advocate for creating, sustaining successful high schools and middle schools. We will use that same structure in middle school to continue that process across the city. The third triangle that you see on the left, this idea of industry sector partnerships, I mentioned Connexus NEO earlier, convenes that for our high schools to make sure that there's equitable and adequate resources, experiences, and opportunities for students across the district right now for the high school level. At the middle school level, we'll be convening what we call the nonprofit partnership councils. They will be doing similar work, but through that idea of the nonprofit lens, making sure that our students in middle school have equitable access, that they have experiences and have the resources they need to really do the work that we're asking them to do at the middle school level. And then lastly, we have the assist triangle that you see on the left. And that is each academy has its own advisory board. That's really the boots on the ground partnerships that are really making sure that that academy is healthy and has what they need to move forward. At the middle school level, we will also have advisories that are really supporting the work of college and career academies at each middle school for our business and community engagement. So I think this continues to be a strength for us in Akron. Communities across the country at the Ford NGL network opportunities really speak highly of this ability to really build systems and structures to support our business and community engagement. And we feel very lucky to live in a community where people are as invested as they are in the future of our community. And lastly, Mark and I wanted to really go deeper into this idea of how we're going to engage our families so that we make this joint collaborative opportunity that we're all growing and all improving, as we know that we need to wrap our arms around our students in middle school. At the foundation, one of the major strategies is to provide a family liaison in every single middle school as the point of contact to really be a connector between our families and the school, so that there are real, very clear communication channels and opportunities to collaborate on everything within that college and career academy experience for students in the middle school. Mark, do you want to speak more to ways that the structures around interactive, informational, engaging?
Yes. COVID has taught us some things as it relates to how we communicate and invite our families in to not only monitor the progress of their student, but also to engage in what the students are learning. Some of the things that we've learned is we got to be a little more interactive with our invitation and bringing parents in. So surveys will start off by asking parents what they need. When do you need it? Because when we talk about equitable access, if we're saying that everything has to take place from 4:30 to 6:30, and I know as a parent that I'm working that second shift, it's hard for me to come and support and monitor what's going on. So we have to make sure that our parent nights, our learning demonstrations, and our celebrations of success meets what our parents are asking for and where they're at within their daily lives. Also, our informational showcase events, Academy 101 sessions, websites, social media, mailings, etc. We have to move from having a lot of educational jargon and have a little more conversational tools that allow for parents to understand what it is that we're asking of them, their student, and our community. And then finally, engaging our parents and our students and our communities into family career expos, not where they're coming to get information, but where they're coming to learn how they can up their career focus areas as parents, so that they are learning while their students are learning, creating workshops that will allow for them to have quick insights to what it is that students are learning as it connects to community partners, as it connects to nonprofits and things of that nature. And then learning labs so that they can navigate through the systems that we're putting in place. So if we're saying that we're going to use SOL as a platform to allow for students to be able to engage and have relevant learning, then we need to have learning labs where the parents are coming in and learning about SOL and what that means and how they can support their child. So not leaving the parents behind and not having that opportunity gap for the parents, but having a more robust system in place for parents to feel like a true partner within our system of transforming middle schools.
So our timeline of implementation is a 5-year rollout that really stays rooted in the 3 Ford strands that were mentioned earlier this evening. So when you look at the screen, it really talks about in that first green box where it talks about transforming teaching and learning. We have laid out for you the major components in each year that will help us transform teaching and learning for our students. In 2021, so this will be second semester if board approved, we will be implementing what we call SOL, which is the self-organized learning environment. This is the first step in getting our teachers to think about inquiry-based learning, and it's within their own content area, where they can become more of a facilitator that Mark mentioned earlier today, and really let students dig in and solve real world problems. We also plan on implementing culturally responsive practices training during the 2021 school year to really build that foundation for transforming the climate and culture in each middle school. In 21-22, we're going to build on that soul experience, and we're going to be moving towards more of that inquiry-based learning. This will require our teachers to not only work within their own content-based learning, but also to work with their peers, cross-content. So they start looking at building overlapping cross-content projects and themes. In addition to that, we will begin embedding the social emotional learning standards into the daily instruction. The state of Ohio has approved grade level specific social emotional learning standards that are intended to be embedded into the daily instructional practices of education. So there will be training and support in 21-22 with the embedded social emotional learning components. In 22-23, we'll be taking that kind of inquiry-based learning and moving it to problem-based learning, which really takes an authentic problem within the community, where students then apply their wonderment, their inquiry, and they look at designing and solving those problems that are actually rolled out by our community partners and our experts, where students then solve and really make connection to the content standards they're intended to master. That second layer that you see in 22-23, lift in that social emotional focus, and our teachers will be provided training on trauma-informed instruction during the 22-23 school year. The 23-24 focus area will be kind of extending out that problem-based learning and actually going into the community to solve those problems, giving back to the community that they're learning more about, and really making an impact and really driving that work home. And then in 24-25, it will be deepening and sustaining those strategies across the timelines. So you see that those are the big buckets for transforming teaching and learning. The second area of transforming the middle school experience really builds in 2021. We'll be on really continuing our work around PBIS and making sure that we have all of the tools and supports needed to implement that at a deep level. Our counselors will be supporting peer mentoring, and we will have a move in our college and career academy courses in middle school to be more inquiry-based and more project-based to help ensure that we are getting our kids to think a little bit differently when solving problems. And then continuation of a program that's been highly successful is our Pathway to Success program, where our students are really getting the wraparound supports needed to be successful both in middle school and in high school. When you look at 21, the year 2021, 2022, the movement towards transforming the middle school experience will focus on making sure that our grade level teams are working effectively. That is an important piece to this transformation, is building the infrastructure so that teams have the tools necessary to support the learners on their team. Our middle schools will be converted, middle school libraries will be in the process of converting to maker spaces. We are going to continue to also expand our AVID and advanced classwork. If you're not familiar with AVID, it's a college access program that is designed to help students see themselves ready for college and advanced courses, and it's a support mechanism to really make that accessible for students. Lastly, in 2021, there'll be an expansion of our clubs and our student leadership opportunities to develop that, what Mark mentioned earlier, is the capacity for all to take on some type of leadership role in an area of focus for each student. And then in 2022-23, you'll see student leadership opportunities, and we will be looking at the opportunity to possibly redesign our in-school suspension program that is currently in place. The intention is to put together a design team to rethink what that could look like to support students in a different way. 2024, the intent is to build refocus centers in every middle school where students can go decompress, relax a little bit, maybe just kind of take their mind off whatever issues they're having in the moment, and then hopefully get back to class in a very quick and timely manner. We will continue to work with and put together a peer mediation where our student leaders become really skilled in being able to help kind of problem and support that social emotional learning and increase and improve the middle school experience for our students. Again, in 24-25, it will be about deepening and sustaining strategies. Lastly, when you look at the third green area, we're talking about transforming the business and civic engagement. Our intention for the second semester is to get our partner broker in place and really begin to train and recruit nonprofit and philanthropic organizations to be partners with our middle school. We are looking to bring in a family liaison for every middle school to build that foundation and build that connection between our schools and our community and our families. And then have our academy coaches hired this second semester too, so that they're in place and ready to be trained to begin work in the 21-22 school year. As far as transforming business and civic engagement, you'll see that partnership and development and experiential learning begins in 21-22. We will, again, just very similarly to high school, we will have guaranteed experiences for students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that gets our students the opportunity to not only do career exploration, but also learn more about what's happening within our own community. 22 and 23, we will put our academy advisory boards in play. And then you'll see in 23-24, our nonprofit partnership councils go into play and our service learning projects begin as well. And then in 24-25, we'll be continuing to deepen and sustain those strategies. This is all predicated on your approval for the master plan addendum, but we wanted you to see kind of the big major initiatives that will be happening each year to really transform this work and transform the educational experience for our students in middle school.
So the last two topics to kind of close this out before we open it up for questions. You heard all of the major strategies, and I hope for those of you who either had the opportunity to go to Nashville or have been around through our whole high school transformation, either on the board or as part of our community partnership work in each of our schools, I hope you see those themes, that you can see exactly how what's happening at the middle school will align directly with the high school experience then. It's important to know, because this has probably been the most common question that we've gotten as we went through the middle school design phase, is, are we turning the middle schools like, will kids have to pick career themes and will, like they do at the high school? And that is not the case. They're not going to have to pick a specific career type academy. That's the middle school, just as Mr. Black and Mrs. Tech have said, it's all about that career exploration and preparation and all those professional skills outlined in the Portrait of a Graduate. That's what we're focused on, with a special lens on that social emotional learning that then prepares them to make those important decisions as they go on to high school. So the two last topics is the budget, that we'll take a look, just a very quick overview, because we'll be bringing the budget through the finance committee and then back to you as a board. And then we're going to talk about the second last topic is just sort of our next steps for the rest of this year. So the 5-year budget, we had the budget completed last spring, as Mrs. Mansfield and Mrs. McKittrick talked about it at the opening, that we were planning on bringing all of this to you last spring before our life got disrupted. But we reworked a number of the timelines. We moved some things in later years. We retooled some of the strategies just because of the learning environments that we are now, and what we've learned from this, that we actually made some shifts because we wanted to transform in a different way due to everything we've learned through our remote learning. So we've retooled it, but we're going to be presenting first to the Finance Committee the 5-year budget. I will tell you right now, and that is on November 23rd, we have a tremendous amount of financial support, even more so than what we had for our high school transformation. So the bulk of the new expenses that we're looking at will be funded through the 5 major funders that we have for the middle school work. You've already heard Mr. Black talk about the GAR Foundation, who has been with us through the entire journey, and that some of that money is going to be targeted to middle school as well. The Martha Holden Jennings Foundation, that is a $500,000 over that 5 years that is exclusively for middle school. And then the Akron Community Foundation funding not only the support for all the design that we did this past year and bringing all the partners, but funding the position that will be the partner broker who will go out and recruit all those businesses. So that support will continue. And then, as you all have heard us talk about, and especially if you've attended any of the instructional policy committee meetings, you've heard deeper dives through, we have applied both for a Hewlett Foundation grant and a Chan Zuckerberg Initiative grant. They go by CZI. Those are both $1.5 million grants that are focused pretty heavily on middle school, but then they also reach into some high school, and the CZI grant then will support our elementary master planning process. So we will know within the next 2 weeks whether we officially are receiving the 1.5 million from the Hewlett Foundation and 1.5 million from CZI. So by the board meeting of November 30th, we will know both of those. And so that collective funding is going to be significant. It's about $3.8 million that we're looking at just for that middle school 5-year support. And then lastly, the next steps then. The way the rest of this month will go before we come back to the board on November 30th to seek official approval then for the master plan. On November 20th, I just wanted to give you a heads up because Mrs. Teka talked earlier about the steering committee that has around 80 people, 80 community members, family, students who come together to hold us accountable and help advise all the pre-K through 12 academies. And we do have a meeting November 20th that will make sure that everyone gets invited if you're able to attend, so that you can see how that works with all the different partners coming together. And then on November 23rd, we will bring the 5-year budget that the superintendent just reviewed this morning, and we'll bring that to the Finance Committee, take a look at it, and then we'll send it out to the rest of the board in preparation for the November 30th board meeting. Policy and Student Achievement Committee, that'll be our final look at any other adjustments in the master plan, anything that we need to discuss on the budget. And then November 30th, we'll bring a resolution for approval of the master plan. And the budget is just a framework. Obviously the funders give us flexibility to make adjustments as we go, but we like to show the whole 5-year what we anticipate expenses, just so we have some guideposts as we work through. And then in January and February, if the board does approve the master plan on November 30th, we would look at a designation ceremony with Ford Next Generation Learning to do a ceremony. It'll be virtual, obviously, but we don't want to miss an opportunity and wait until we get past all of this to have a designation ceremony. I will tell you that the College and Career Academies, this national network of districts all across the country, There's probably close to 40 now, Mrs. Tecca, is that right, for the college and career academies through the Ford network. We are very unique in terms of very formally moving into middle school strategies and elementary. The districts across the country are focused almost exclusively on high school, with some strategies at the middle and a little bit at the elementary. But we are really the first district to very formally go through an extensive master planning process like we're doing, and mapping out a very intensive 5-year plan to serve as our guides. So I want to make sure you know that. And then most importantly, because elementary is the foundation, Mrs. Outley Kelly, we are looking at this winter convening the elementary master planning team. We've had a tactical team working since the inception of our college and career academies, but we want to bring in all the community partners, the families, the students, and do a formal planning the rest of this year so that we can bring an elementary 5-year plan to you, hopefully by the summer or early fall next year. So just to close before questions, I have to raise up Mr. Black, who led this whole transformation in partnership with the Akron Community Foundation, and Mrs. Tecca, who has been kind of the linkage with all of our pre-K through 12. But Mr. Black did a beautiful job through the whole master planning process of leading that team and all of those tactical teams. It was about 80 to 100 people probably working on all of those different strategies. And obviously, Dr. James giving us this freedom to innovate and pushing us to be something unique across the country, getting into this middle school and elementary work. So now we'll open it up to questions.
Phil, did you want to wrap anything up before we open up with questions? Or are you good?
I don't have really anything to wrap up, but I'll just grab this since you gave me the mic for a second. One of the things I heard today that I hadn't heard yet was when Mr. Black was talking about the family engagement piece. Really excited about the idea of what do you need and when do you need it? It's one of those things that makes so much sense. And I can't believe it's 2020 and we're talking about this, and that it's like one of those, you know, how I was this many years old or whatever people say on the internet when I heard that. And it's like, hello, as a child of folks who work third shift, who missed parent teacher conferences, or, you know, and we used to have the all day one then, or, who missed open houses and things like that. And my husband worked a third shift often. And so the idea that there would be any kind of opportunity that we would offer to families at different times and taking those schedules into consideration, I think shows a huge growth. You know, when I go to explain to people what the very basics of like my 10 seconds on college and career academies, I always talk about how it's not just cracking the school door open, it's kicking it in and welcoming folks into the building and making them feel, and letting our kids out, right? It's being a real community. So that was just one of those things that really perked me up. So thank you for that. I'm very excited. So I'll sit back and listen now.
Thanks. We'll go around the room. Dr. Hall.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? My audio is not working on my computer, so I'm talking to the phone. Okay, great. If it starts to echo, someone give me like a hand wave or something, okay? So first off, listen, I'm super excited about this. Really enjoyed the presentation. You know, I really enjoy the middle school population. There's a lot of talented kids, and you're catching them before they become, at times, truly recalcitrant at the high school level. At times. So anyway, but so I have a number of questions. So I know we've adopted kind of a rule where we kind of ask 2 questions and go around. So I'm going to ask my 2 questions and then I'll wait my turn to go back around the circle. But my first one, so first is a comment, really back to Mr. Black. I'll echo what Ms. Mansfield today. I loved the the language around understanding our family needs, because a lot of this starts with that. I mean, in healthcare, we talk about sort of risk stratification. In education, we don't like to use the word risk, but we think about sort of opportunities for students, right, to improve whether their quality of life, their quality of education, et cetera. And until we have that data on what our families need and when they need it, it's hard to even have the equity conversation, because again, I don't know what you need and I don't know when you need it, So I'm very, very excited to kind of hear, as you all sort of work through the surveys, the kinds of questions that you're going to ask, to really kind of, to really get at that information. I'm really keen to kind of see some of that product when you guys are after you develop it. And then, so my first question, in my comment, I'm going to count my comment as a question. So my first question is really just want to understand a bit more the culturally responsive practice component. So my assumption in that is, on North Hill, we have a large Nepali population on North Hill, right? Other schools, may have a really strong or a high African American population. Others may have, majority Caucasian, right? So, but even the Caucasian and African American may be broken down in the sort of multiple sort of cultural sort of subtypes, right? So I guess my question is, for this go around was going to be, can you talk a bit more when you say culturally responsive practice, like what kinds of tools or resources are you going to bring to bear, and how do you differentiate between between what schools you utilize, what tools and resources that? Does that make sense? Okay.
Mark, did you want to take that, or did you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, we can all take it. And Dr. Hall, I appreciate the, the question. First thing we have to understand is Carla Chapman has been doing a great job of meeting our new teachers at the onset before they go into the classroom with our culturally responsive training, to allow for them to first be aware. And I think that's for everyone, to be aware of some of the biases we may bring, not only to our job, but to our classroom, that may impact how students are educated or how students are provided opportunities. And you mentioned North Hill, and we can build off of that. So yes, when we're looking at North Hill, we have to understand that not only is there a language barrier, we know there's a cultural barrier in the way that students are learning and receive information, as well as collaborate with others. So before we can jump into PBLs and collaborative learning and students and teachers expected to create a project, we have to understand the mindset and the way that we operate and process things as a group, as a gender, and definitely as a race. So it would start with what Carla has already started and put in place, and that is the training that our teachers receive, not only at the onset of when they come into Akron Public Schools, but also through their 6-hour options. And if it's okay with Dr. James, I would defer to Carla to talk about those breakout target areas that she and her team focuses on to ensure that we are responding to not only what students need and what teachers need to have that collaborative conversation, and sometimes courageous conversation, but what it will take for us to be able to meet our students' needs where they're at, so that they can continue to learn under our umbrella of Transforming Middle School. So if Carla, you want to jump in with some of those big areas that we focus on.
Sure, Dr. James. Yeah. So thank you, Mark. When we talk about being culturally responsive, we're really looking at it in a way that allows for several things to happen, right? So one is the whole self-assessment and self-reflective process, and we need to be using tools for that. Our district has already, through the superintendent's encouragement, paid for qualified administrators of the intercultural development inventory. And there are other tools, but that is one that's being used broadly. You're familiar with that. Kasuma is a big player in that work as well. So there's the self-reflective component. And then we talk about how we collect and use our data that tells us who we're working well with and who we are not, and really going deeply into disaggregating our data so we know where our gaps exist. And then we talk about the action planning work around equity plans. And so those three together will allow us to do the work around creating equitable learning environments for our students, but really addressing that cultural responsiveness in terms of the linguistically and culturally diverse students that we serve, but also understanding the cultural capital that our students bring in terms of their language, their social interaction, their assets, so that we are able to build the kind of positive, supportive relationships that we want to have with our students that support academic success.
Dr. Hall, I also wanted to just raise up our partnerships uniquely in primarily the North Cluster. And Mrs. Tecca knows this very well as the former principal of North High School. You know, I think there were 19 different languages spoken when you were there, that it really, because of our great partnerships with the International Institute and Asia Inc. and those organizations, plus our own interpreters and our own English learner language staff who often come from similar backgrounds as the students that they're serving, it really is a very uniquely tailored training and support to understand that broad diversity. You can't just have one training that captures, you know, to learn all the different 19 different cultural aspects, because they're all so unique. So each school tailors that uniquely with all those, either through those outside organizations or their own staff that help provide that support.
All right, and I didn't see anyone else jump in. So Dr. Hall, if you have two more and you'd like to go, feel free.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Please let me know.
Gotcha. So the next thing, and Ms. Tecca, while I'm teeing this question up, can you go to the slide, or just, I mean, I have it in my head, but it's the slide that had the success indicators on it. You know, so I think you had things like GPA on there. I think I wrote down GPA, professional skills, attendance, education, perception, etc. So my question was going to be, so as I was looking through like each year that you kind of laid out, like 21, 22, 23, my overarching question, and then I'll kind of dig down. Thank you for showing that. Is, you know, each year you're adding or layering in additional services and interventions, to make the model more robust. So I guess for me, as a board member, I want to understand, and can you speak to how do I know, or how do we know with each year whether or not we've been successful in that particular year, right? So understanding that Rome was not built in a day, but what are the kind of key success indicators or key kind of milestones that that we'll be looking at or signatory to each year, so that way we know, okay, after 2020, after 2022, are we on track still, to get to where we want to go? So, and it may still be these, it may be these 5 metrics, for all 4 years, and it may not be, again, we may add additional ones on. But my question is like, for example, grades and GPA, just as an basic example, what is the goal that we would have set for year 1, right? And what do we benchmark that against, right? So how do we know if my benchmark, if my baseline was, I'm making up numbers here, was 2.2 GPA, and after the first year we're at 2.4, is that good? And how do I know that? So that's sort of my first question.
Yeah, so really good question, Dr. Hall. I think one of the things that is critically important is establishing the baseline right now and really seeing where we're at with all of the indicators that we've laid out in this master plan addendum. The other piece is, we are actually really good at setting SMART goals in this district. They're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're relatable, they're time sensitive. We are really good at that. But one of the things that we're going to lean heavily on is our partners at the Summit Education Initiative, because they have those predictive analytics that let us know where students, what time to really ensure that college and career readiness. So I think the first step for us is establishing that baseline, looking to our partner SEI to provide that information for us. And then we can set some realistic SMART goals that will get us started in this process. I agree with you. And I think that's one of the best things about having such a strong steering committee. As we show outcomes and we show, where our strengths are, where our areas of challenge are, they're going to be the people that guide us to say, hey, that's fantastic. Think about this. Or you might want to start, and that's kind of the role of the steering committee, to continue to make sure that this transformation stays on track. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and let me just add to that. When you think about the bold goals that we have, and you hear SEI talk about, one of the baseline is, what percentage of our students in 8th grade right now have a 3.0 and they're passing algebra? Okay, because they know when they transition to high school, or the data shows when they transition to high school, they have more of a chance of not only graduating, staying on track to graduate, but moving into a college and career ready grade or marking on the college entrance exam. And then, well, what does it take for a student to be in school? What amount of time should a student be in school to be successful with their grades and their GPA? Well, we know that the data shows that we want students to be in at least 95%. So attendance rate at least 95%. So those are some of the baseline things we come into. And then we look at, the competencies of a graduate, and how do we, connect that to, or working with SEI, they will connect that to what success is needed by each grade level. Because a student that's failed math in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, they're not going to magically pass math in the 9th grade. So what are we doing in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to monitor what grades we're looking at? So we may focus on math and English, because we know that it takes 4 years to graduate in math with a credit, and it takes 4 years for English. So if I fall off in the 9th grade year at a semester, and I earn a 0.5 credit in English in my 9th grade year, I'm already off track to graduate. So looking at the middle school, grades 6th, 7th, and 8th, and the success of the student's GPA, maybe in those particular areas, like I said, and like Rachel said, we'll be working with SEI. So they may say, hey, students need to average at least a 2.5 or higher in the areas of English and math in order to be on track to pass math and English in high school. So those are some of the metrics that we'll be working with them on.
Dr. Hall, I did want to mention, because I do think this is important as you're diving into the master plan and the tactical plans that we delivered to everyone. The master planning process is the whole, the visionary piece. Here's the community coming together, students at the table, parents at the table, everyone coming together to say, here's where we want to head in 5 years. Once you approve the master plan, that big kind of guidepost document, then my unbelievable team, with all of our data analysts that we have in the district, take that big vision and they start breaking down into very specific, like what Mrs. Tecca was saying about those SMART goals, of having very specific goals with very specific action steps with metrics attached to each one of those. And then we pull out and work with the steering committee to say which ones are going to be the big rocks that we report out. We're assuming they're going to be what you're seeing on the screen right now, that because those tightly align with what we know from SEI for the high school. But that work comes from once the master plan is approved, the big vision, and then the detail will be there. And you'll see some of that reported out at the steering committee, the bigger rocks, but know that, at any time we can sit down and show you the very detailed action plans that we have that map out every single action step. It has what accountability measures are in place. How do we know whether that specific task is moving the needle towards those bigger goals? So that's the work to come. I do want to just mention that as we go around to the next questions, I did promise Dr. James that we would make sure that he could get to the governor's, probably all of us want to get to the governor's address by 5:30. So I promise we'll start answering brief answers, and then I will be available anytime to be able to answer additional questions, Mr. Bravo, if we need to go beyond that, because it sounds like this is going to be an important address tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that was one question. That was one question. I still have one more question left. So that I'm keeping track of my own questions. That was one. It was a big question. It was one. And then my second question was going to be, so first off, thank you for that answer. That distinction between master plan and capital plan, I get that. I just want to say I'd asked that question because I know that a lot of times when grants are being given, they have metrics that are in the grant that they expect that you're going to meet. And so that's why in my head I was thinking, all right, well, what are the metrics that were in the GAR grant that they expect us to be able to impact? So again,
right.
But we can dive more into that later.
Right.
But I want to get to my second question here, and so which was, in the 2023 school year, for example, we have the trauma-informed instruction and the in-school suspension redesign. I want to spend my question asking about the in-school suspension redesign component. So I know that the I Promise School through MOUs are able to discipline is handled differently within the four walls of that school. I guess I'll put it that way. And so my question becomes, what is this in-school suspension redesign? When you say redesign of in-school suspension, what does that look like? I guess it's a term I'm unfamiliar with.
Yeah, so our tactical teams, the teachers, the parents, and business partners, they proposed that redesign based off of some pilots that we had within the district. And one of those pilots took place over at NSCLC. And not saying that the redesign would look like this, but that's where they drew the idea from. And what happens in that in-school suspension is, when we were in school, just a couple years ago, the in-school suspension was a place where you went, you were isolated, you sat in the chair, you either got some work from your teacher and you were on your own to do it, and that was it. You ate your lunch in there. Well, we're trying to move away from that punitive discipline where it'll cause for a student to create a learning gap. So how do we still keep them connected to their teacher when they're in that room? Because what happens is sometimes if I have an IEP and I go in that room and I don't get that, teacher support or instructional support, I could be in violation of, that child's IEP. So instead of the student going into the room and getting double jeopardy, as some of the folks on the tactical team called it, you're in there already, and that's enough punishment. But how do we keep your instruction going? Because if it's not, then you should just be suspended, right? So in order for learning to continue and for the student to still feel a part of the community and feel a way that in-school suspension is a preventative place for them to go instead of suspension, what does that look like in an equitable way, in an equitable environment, so that students still have access to what they are guaranteed if they were sitting in that classroom? So that's without, again, and they're designing that work, but that's what the redesign is going to move towards.
So that's a work in progress. Okay, I appreciate that. So I too would like to get to that address at 5:30. Thanks for the reminder that it was coming up. So I will reserve the remainder of my questions for email. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions? Ms. Autry?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks again for all the hard work on this. So I know this is going to be coming to the Finance Committee in terms of the budget. So I guess I had more of a statement. I'm just wondering, what other than grades are we going to be using to measure as far as the resources allocation to each middle school? Because we might be assuming that every middle school is starting off on equal footing. And I know each middle school has its own specific challenges and whatnot. And I know it was spoken to already with some of the answers that we've had. But I'm just thinking about what other measures we're going to be looking at outside of grades.
Yeah, definitely know that already we know we're going to have differentiated allocations of resources based on the number, some of the data we've already talked with you about with higher level courses. You know, where do we need to have a greater lift on offering the advanced classes that we've been working on that at the high school level, but obviously you can't just start there. We need to start at the middle school so the students have that pathway towards those advanced placement classes at the high school level. So some middle schools, similar to the high school, some middle schools offer more higher level courses, some don't. So we're going to have to differentiate and provide more resources for teachers in buildings to get training and to offer courses. That's a perfect example. Some middle schools already have AVID, which is the class that supports students in those higher level courses. Others don't. So we're going to have differentiated allocation there. So we'll be looking at all of that data on the baseline plus. You know, we always look at allocating more social emotional learning resources where we have higher suspension rates, for example. That the suspension, social emotional, we use Youth View, which is the student surveys that talk about their own social emotional health. We'll be looking at that data. So there'll be a wide range, but there won't be anything about this 5-year plan that will be that everybody gets like a chunk of money per kid and it goes. That's because it is so different across all the middle schools on each of those strategies.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Comments, questions? Okay. Ms. Autry, go ahead.
All right. You know, I recall, I think Mr. Black mentioned the transition of teaching from being more from direct instruction to a facilitator role. So I guess I'm just thinking about some of the students that I've met over the years and how we are going to address, I guess, those who might not be as open to that, I guess, approach to learning. I think some students might need that direct instruction. Not all of them will respond well to that. Is there anything that we've seen, I guess, in other areas, in other districts who are doing this, where they've successfully, I guess, addressed both of those types of approaches?
Yeah, I just let me be clear. I'm not saying that direct instruction is totally going away. We're just saying that we're going to move from direct instruction to more of the teacher being a facilitator, you know, in a collaborative effort within the classroom. And right here in our that's the basis of New Tech over at Booktel. That's the basis of STEM middle school and STEM high school, and it's also the basis for our IB programs at Litchfield that we're putting in place. So we have learned from those different buildings, the do's and don'ts, and as our team are building, you know, those supports that we may have lacked in you know, in their quest to, you know, have a direct instruction and a facilitated classroom, so that the learner is more involved in answering their own questions and generating their own questions, but also responding to the teacher's questions is the first step that we're going to take.
Anyone else? Anyone else? All right, great questions and discussion. I would definitely encourage folks to reach out either through, Dr. Akbar has one thing. Go ahead, Dr. Akbar.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is acting weird. But first, I just want to say thank you for presenting this plan. It definitely sounds like a great plan, especially with the incorporation of the nonprofits. I think that that's definitely going to help us as we move forward in many ways. I did want to just say that Dr. Hall had a question specific about equity, and I think Ms. Autry also made a comment as well in that way. I just wanted to echo what Ms. Chapman said around how we build these partnerships. So I just think that what the direction that you're going is, it's definitely in line with that. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hall.
Day, but you know, we're not I'm not Dr. Hall. But happy Veterans Day to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, as I was saying, I would definitely encourage folks to reach out through instructional policy and student achievement. And as you heard earlier, the budget portion of this is going to flow through finance and capital management coming up next before anything comes back to the board with questions to either of those committees, as well as and thank you for the presentation this evening. I'll hand it back over to Dr. James in case there's any.
No, I don't think so. I'd like to thank the team for, all of their hard work and really, presenting this. I think, as we go through our finance committee and instructional policy, we'll be able to dive a little bit deeper into this and hopefully get it approved. But thank you all.
Thank you. At this time, with no business to come before the board, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion from Ms. McKittrick and a second from Ms. Autry. We are adjourned. Thank you, and let's hope for good things out of the address tonight.
Right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.